What's going on, guys? Welcome to our live stream. Greetings. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Matthew along with Daniel, and we're with Company Acceleration. And just to introduce ourselves, what we are doing here is we are business or leadership coaches. What does that mean? Not a consultant, not a coach. We always say that. We help come in and work with leadership teams. Today, we're going to talk about the state of the events and purpose, exploring the leadership in the modern business, focusing on growth and change. Kind of a crazy topic, Dan. What do you think? Growth and change, and what does it mean, modern business world or business? What's the modern business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think leadership, when you're placed in a position of leadership, you are in a position of influence, and you're being given a responsibility to that business to stay up to date, to be adaptable, because the modern business landscape, we can feel it right now. AI is
Oh yeah,
disrupting everything.
yeah.
Everything around us is just, it shifts so quickly nowadays that as a leader, you need to be constantly in focus with that and ready to follow suit and transform your own leadership as the landscape around you is shifting.
Yeah, and I think in this when we're understanding the modern leadership challenges too, like you said, AI discussing like the importance of adapting is what I'm hearing you say, right?
Yeah, the importance of adapting, the adaptability as a core, like not just an idea, but like the asset of leadership. That adaptability becomes your core leadership skill or your core asset that you have when it comes to leadership.
Yeah, and adaptability too. And I want to drive this and jump and speak on this because adaptability. We just went a couple years now. I think how many years has it been? 2020 was COVID, right?
Hmm.
And then now we're out of COVID. But even though we're past that wonderful, terrible, in an, not a very fun event. I say that facetiously because it was not very fun. Um, but the economy, do you feel the economy is recovered when it comes to the business landscape, or are we still in recovery mode?
I think it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think what maybe you're leaning in on is that as leaders, we're constantly looking forward, trying to figure out whether or not we have, what type of foresight do we need to be ready for change, because we don't know if it's over. We don't know if it's done changing. And most likely, of course, it's not going to be done changing. We have the it's necessary to quickly respond to change, to embrace new technologies, to lead teams during that uncertainty, right? The uncertainty that you mentioned, we don't know. And to that's what really sets a successful leader apart. And it goes beyond than just merely reacting to changes. It involves proactively anticipating the shifts and preparing your team and your organization to meet them head on, which is what you were mentioning. Are we done? We're not sure, but we're going to proactively anticipate a potential shift and prepare our teams and our company to meet that head on. So the importance of foresight comes in, where foresight becomes a key skill to a modern leader's toolkit. I
Yeah.
mean, it involves not just looking at immediate challenges like right around you this day, this moment, what you're facing, but having a vision that spans years potentially into the future. And how does the market trends look then? And what emerging technologies could be impacting your particular industry? Effective leaders are those who can foresee these changes and then strategically plan for them.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I was thinking this last 2 weeks here in Vegas, we had CES. I think I said that right. It's the technology conference that comes every year. And man, you're speaking to what I was hearing from everybody going to it. The evolving technology. They were talking about AI, like you mentioned earlier at the start of the live stream, and And what I was hearing from everybody is that AI is here to stay. And so, like what we're talking about, adaptability and adapting, I remember them saying, "Hey, we're going to have you're seeing eyewear. I don't know if you see this, Dan, on there. Are you seeing a lot of glasses coming out, like
Yeah.
AI?"
Hmm. Hmm.
It was kind of the era. Remember when Google came out? Everybody was freaking out. These search engines, all these where you
Hmm.
can just search anything you want.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody in this conference that they're using AI, which is ChatGPT open source, to start teaching kids. Isn't that crazy?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what he was developing here, this is going to blow your mind. They're going to each kid's going to have their own chat bot or chat GP where they'll have a session with that chat I always say it wrong, dude. You can
GPT.
correct me.
Yep.
Thank you. That's the short bus in me. And so what he was saying is then they'll go through, let's say it's a math session, then the teacher will get on and say, "Hey, chat bot or whatever they name it, what was the session with Matt like?" And then it'll go through and tell the teacher everything they went through.
Hmm.
Isn't that
Nice.
crazy, dude?
Yeah. It's nice.
Now here's this. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's scary," but it's here to stay, guys. I don't know how are you gonna. The thing is what it's there's two sides to it, and I'm not gonna. My opinion's different, and I think it's interesting because like a lot of coders, you can actually code websites through ChatGPT, right?
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
say, "Hey, do the code for this website," and it'll do all the coding for you, right?
Hmm.
And what that does is I think it helps the creativity so you can think on problem solving and get more efficient if you use it correctly, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yep.
What
Yeah, I think what you're speaking to is that, if it is here to stay or change or however it might end up looking again, we don't
yeah,
necessarily know what that looks like, but what we do know is that the business landscape is constantly evolving. And so adopting a culture of continuous learning becomes pretty essential. As leaders, we want to foster an environment where you and your team are always learning, always growing, and adapting, because that's crucial. It means that you're staying informed with these industry trends.
yeah,
You're investing in personal and your professional development, and you're encouraging the team that you lead to do the same. And I
exactly.
think that's the impact that leadership can have on team dynamics, that in this modern business landscape, leaders are influencing their teams to transform. And today's leader needs to be a coach, a mentor, a supporter, not just a simple decision maker. They need the ability to inspire and to motivate and to align their team around a common goal. And that's more important than ever, especially with all these different changes that you're mentioning, and just what we have to take on as a leader nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of leaderships, as we work with leadership teams, I see a lot of stress on how do I get this to the finish line faster. So
Mhm.
a lot of these tools are going to help. Speaking of that, I want to go into the next step here in our live that we brought some major value. I think this is going to be exciting. So I want to talk about mastering the courage builders.
Exactly.
It's an introduction to Company Acceleration's 5 courage builders. So I'm going to let you kind of set the stage, and then we'll go through and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what we did here is just take, obviously, this isn't earth shattering. This is stuff
No,
that people understand. It's inside of other great systems out there, and we took it from our perspective, Company Acceleration's perspective, and a little bit from your background, Matt. You got your book called The Courage to Learn Differently,
correct.
and to have the courage to do things different in the modern business world is where these courage builders come from. That by building our understanding that the modern business landscape is constantly changing, these 5 courage builders allow leaders to take on these key principles to break through growth barriers and to lead their team with more effectiveness and clarity. So simply the 5 courage builders are streamline, you know, your courage to streamline things, your courage to assign and expand, your courage to foresee, your courage to systemize, and the last one, your courage to arrange. And those are the 5 courage builders that we have put together in a framework that just lets a leader look at things and take a quick snapshot of what area they could improve in during an
Let's.
ever-moving landscape.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't
Go
mean to
for it.
cut you. Let's jump in the first one. Repeat the
Yeah.
first one so they hear that again.
It's the courage to streamline.
So the courage to streamline. Let's go in a little depth on it. Being a visual person, give me an example where you've done that in your leadership, Dan, where you've streamlined things. Give an example what that means.
Mainly what you're looking for when you're thinking or in the area of streamlining is you're looking at processes. You're looking at, could be a process to get something done. It could be a process of the way you communicate. Could be the process of the way you make a decision. And what you're trying to do is cut through all the different noise that's going around so that you can enhance your efficiency and clarity. So, you know, an example of this could be that maybe there's a certain way to fulfill an order, and that order has to go through 4 different layers. But when you strip it down, you find that you could get it down to 3 layers by just simply moving a few things around. And now you've streamlined that process, and you've taken the time to communicate what that looks like. And so your team has felt a little bit of that pressure lift off from them.
Yeah. And so, you know, as we're going through this and talking about this topic, the biggest thing, sorry, I had an interruption.
Yeah.
So when we go through this topic and we talk about streamlining, I think the biggest thing I notice when it comes to understanding the streamlining is that I think a lot of leaders, and you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but from our experience, streamlining is one of the most difficult pieces in business is to get that streamline, that system, making sure people are really understanding why we're doing it. Am I on the right path? You know, jump in if I'm heading down that right path.
Yeah, I use a quote from Albert Einstein all the time that you make it as simple as possible, but no more simple than that. And so I might have butchered that a little bit, but to think that you're constantly in that cycle of simplifying and you're trying to make it as simple as possible, but if you water it down too much, then you've lost the effectiveness of whatever process that is. And so it can be complex. It could be overwhelming for a leader to constantly looking at how to accomplish simplification. And, you know, I can dive into, you know, 1 or 2 more, Matt, if you needed to take a quick breather and sneak back in, I can take on a few. And then when you pop back in.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
So I think the next one, even though that streamlining can be difficult, the biggest thing here with the courage builders is that what we're asking from leadership teams and for ourselves is to take inventory. Just simply take inventory. Look around and just ask yourself, is this particular process really complex? Is my team just keep dropping the ball and they don't understand what they're supposed to do here? That's a good time to ask yourself, do I need to streamline this? And so you can cut through the noise and make whatever that is super efficient and super clear for everybody around.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is people try to oversimplify, which you can't. There's what I've learned in this process, and I love the quote you said, is just, you know, being the visionary in the organization. Visionaries have a tendency to they're not detail driven. Visionaries are not detail driven. And so they're more big picture. And so this process of streamlining is pretty difficult for them. And so it's getting that integrator to do it. Let's jump to the next one. I think we really hit that one. Which one do you want to jump on? Any of the other ones that you feel we should hit on? Because they're all
Where
all
we
5
where we
work
at
out.
right now? 15-ish. So
Yeah.
last, if you guys were joining us, then we probably don't want to spend too much time on the next one because our last live was an event was about assign and expand. So we spent quite a bit of time on assign and expand on our
That's true.
last round.
Yep.
Foreseeing is pretty simple. Not simple. It's hard to. Sometimes it can be hard, but it's about mastering both the short term and the long term prediction. It involves forecasting, planning. It's not just about maybe the coming weeks that are just around the corner, but for the months and the years ahead. And by having this leadership ability, having this courage to have foresight, you're developing that so that you can steer your company away from potential pitfalls and towards great opportunities. And that, as a leader, is ensuring that you've got sustainable growth and stability in the company. So that's the courage to foresee, is to not always be caught in firefighting, but look not only short term, but look long term as well.
I have a question on the 4C. So the courage, and I love that we use the term courage on all these, the courage to foresee. So if you have ups and now we all know business is ups and downs, right?
Mhm.
Highs and valleys and lows. So if I'm a business owner and I have a low, and how do I have a courage to foresee that I know there's a hill in the horizon? How do I get through that using the courage to foresee?
We talk about, coming out of the trenches. If you're going to have a low, you're feeling a lot of weight during those times. You have to intentionally get yourself out of the trenches or out of the business, in the sense of meaning that you come out and you work on the business. We talk about taking a 30,000-foot view. So
Mhm.
there's lows happening, things feel heavy, there's tons of stuff that's going around, and you need to spend time planning. So
Yeah.
come out of that, get your leadership team together, and start having some foresight on what does this mean right now. Can we plan for what we're feeling and what we're seeing, and what does that look like for us collectively to get through this moment?
Yeah. I like that. So courage to foresee, and then we have courage to systemize.
Mhm.
It's pretty straightforward, but if I'm not a systemized person, which I wasn't, because as a visionary, I had the visions. But what's it mean if I need to have more courage to systemize? Tell us about that.
I think some people get comfortable being the knowledge source. A
Mhm.
leader's like, just come ask me if you need something. I'll tell you how to do it. Business owners run their company out of their heads years and years and years, and they never put it down. And they become the knowledge base of that particular company. And systemization is the key to scalability. I mean, I'm personally experiencing this. I just recently purchased a company and walked into it, previous owner, 25 plus years, and the entire company was in the head of the owner. It's, as a owner or somebody that's over a company, it's having the courage to document, to simplify, to
Oh yeah.
standardize your core processes so that you can focus on being able to generate more significant results and create systems that ensure that you've got consistency, you've got efficiency, that you are making things predictable so that your business is running smoothly, and then you can finally just focus on creating exceptional experiences. That's the power, that's the courage of systemization, is not being afraid of letting everybody around you know the same thing as you, and to be able to execute at the same level as you.
Nice. Yeah, and I think that you said that well. I can't say that any better. And I think just having that courage to systemize, and the biggest thing I can just add is to not fight the system,
Mhm.
embrace it. You know what I mean? Like embrace the process. We've all heard that because a lot of times I think what we do, I think it was years ago you said this to me that human beings want to go against it because they don't like to be in systems, but systems are there to help us to get processes and things through to the finish line, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
call it the fundamental paradox, right?
Mhm.
So employees want autonomy and they want all this freedom and this type of stuff, but the company needs predictability, or needs accountability and compliance.
Yeah.
And so you're striking a balance between that. And when you can appreciate systems, you're looking for you're over the hurdle of understanding how important consistency is and efficiency is.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so then we hit the systems. Is there anything else that we need to hit on these 5 courage?
I mean, maybe we'll touch and we'll look at this. Yeah, we could touch on courage to arrange is really important. You're always, it's all about, it's about structure. It's about structuring your organization effectively. Do you have the courage to sit down and arrange your company in a way that allows you to have a little bit of what I was speaking to earlier, take a bird's eye view, a 30,000-foot view, and make decisions about structure that aligns with your actual company's objectives? It's, outside of personal preferences, outside of egos, and you're looking at something like what we refer to as the ownership chart, so that you've defined clear roles and responsibilities, and you've taken the time to put the right people in the right positions to drive success for your company. And that's the courage to arrange.
So the courage to arrange is pretty straightforward. Now, all 5 of these courage builders, as we call them, the master of courage builders in our company acceleration plan, I want to ask you, can you share kind of like a situation where you've used all 5 of them or seen the process through you being a leader? Just like some sort of story that you have that you can share one or something.
I think you'll touch
On
on
the
all of
story
these
part.
every once in a while. The one that I was mentioning just recently, taking over this particular company,
Yeah.
it needed to be arranged. It didn't have an org chart. It didn't have structure. It didn't have this ownership chart where people knew what they were doing. They didn't have systems. There was nothing written down. You couldn't ask them, can you show me how to do X? Or where would I find this to do Y? There was nothing to hand, nothing to provide consistency. Um, Asking, could I see some of your short-term goals? Do you have any long-term goals? That was non-existent. And there was no opportunity to really assign and expand, because there was no clear leadership where a leader would have an opportunity to assign and expand in that particular environment. And finally, of course, streamlining things. We weren't streamlining much in that particular company. They didn't know what they would be streamlining, because there was nothing on the table that they were looking at on making more efficient. They were getting through the day. They had fallen into kind of the comfort of what they knew, and it wasn't challenging them, and it was definitely not scalable. And that's the biggest thing here, is that the courage builders allow for your company to find scalability, to find consistency, to find efficiency. And that is a stress reliever for business owners to be able to have that happen within their company.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. That's a good example, just sharing kind of how this all fits. I think for me, it was, I can share a story where was dealing with a leader that it was over department, and the courage to have foresight. This is
Mhm.
a good example of foresight. And this individual just had a hard time seeing ahead. They were always in the moment, in their emotions. And I remember just saying, well, what would you think the outcome could be if this and this happened? Because that's how it has to work. You have to have foresight. And one of the things, Dan, and you can vouch for this, I was a good way of being a good predictor when it came to certain aspects. If somebody would call me and say, "Hey, we're hitting a wall and we can't get through it,"
Mhm.
what courage builder I would say is, I'd say, "Well, give me 10 minutes and I'll figure that out." So I'm modeling which one, systemize or sign. Give me an
You
assignment.
you
You would
could be
call,
dipping you could be dipping in systemize, you could be
yeah,
dipping into range if you felt like the
yeah,
structure wasn't right.
yeah.
So
Because you would call and say, "Hey, I need this," and I'd say, "Okay, give me 10 minutes, and I'll get back with you." And one of the things in the five builders or the courage builders is you have to have courage to push through things. Hit that ceiling, get through it, and use these courage builders to figure out where you're stuck, right? Because if you go back and figure, hey, I'm hitting a ceiling as a leader, where am I stuck? Which kind of brings us on to where we've kind of hit all these. Dan, is there anything? I have one thought, but I want to ask you before we get into some Q&A or just kind of go through some things. Is there anything we're missing on these five?
nope, that's
I
the
think we
5
hit them
courage
pretty good.
builders. That's it.
Yeah. This is I don't know how to say it, man. This is such a good tool. This, for the last decade, this tool has helped me as a leader. I don't any thoughts on you from you? I mean, I love this tool. This is
Yeah,
my go-to.
anytime you hit a wall as a leader, your team is hitting a wall or your company is hitting a wall. This is the go-to set of 5 areas that you can ask yourself, are we hitting a wall because we haven't done this, in the
Yeah,
sense of
refined
maybe
it.
we haven't foreseen a lot of things, we don't have any goals. Are we hitting a wall because our ownership chart is wrong and we need to find ways to put the right people in the right seat? So this is 100% the go-to tool that you would want, the 5 areas that you want to look at when you feel like you're stuck.
Yeah. I think it's really just a huge game changer when you're as a leader, especially for visionaries. And I'll just speak for myself, is as a visionary that has the vision, you're part of the. Dan and I kind of hold that. Dan has both sides of it. He can be a visionary and he can be an integrator, right? Integrator means you can come down and create systems, right?
Mhm.
And have big picture at the same time. I'm just all vision. Like, I'm all vision. So what this does for a good visionary, so if I'm speaking to you visionaries, it grounds you. Because then if I get frustrated and I hit a ceiling, I just do what you said, Dan. I just start listing these 5 barriers, courage builders, not barriers.
Mhm.
Sorry, I just changed them on us. But the takeaway I get from this session as we do these lives, they're just casual conversations between us as we went through our leadership experience and as we help teams all over. I think the takeaway I get is just have courage, like step up. Don't let things just be what they are. Like, status quo is not healthy within a company. And we see that a lot with leaders. That's my takeaway. What is your takeaway on this, Dan?
I would say that it becomes strategies that your team or you can use, becomes a common language, and that's really powerful, to have a common language, to be able to look someone else in the eye and say, hey,
Yeah.
Matt, I think we need to have some courage to arrange some things around here. We're hitting a wall. That, if it's understood amongst the team, we know what we just said to each other, and we know that's the work we have to go do, and we can just get to it. We can execute, and we can do what we need to grow as an organization and even personally. And so there's the takeaway to me is that you're creating a system of communication and a system of execution that's leading to growth.
That's it. Yeah. How simple is that? That's so cool. And it's not complex, but one of the things I just challenge, if you're listening today, is really just encourage you how you can apply these insights, like what we just talked to the last 30 minutes or so, and your leadership, most importantly, your leadership, and really figure out how this business practice can get you unstuck. And I encourage you, hey, reach out to us, DM us. Both me and Dan are here on LinkedIn. You can send us a DM and say, hey, I'd like to schedule an appointment. And what we do is we just do a discovery call. Like, it's just basically seeing what we can do to help if we feel like we can come in and help. And that's all it is. It's very simple, nothing big. And we'll go through these 5 barriers or courage builders with you. And then we'll kind of talk to you about some other things. And then we can see where that goes. So just DM us. We'd love to talk to you. But Dan, that's it for this week.
Sure. Yep.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Well, we'll be back on Friday. So
That's right.
we're doing
Mhm.
Fridays, Tuesdays and Fridays. and we'll go from there. But until next time, continue to have courage to get these builders going. And if anything else, till next time, thanks, Dan, for joining, as always.
All right, y'all. See ya.
See you guys. Oh, shoot.